We've more than two-thirds of Southeast Asia currently spending more time online than before. There's actually, I think a vast amount of opportunity in the market. And Cole, you've been running DocDoc for a number of years now. But what do you think? Is it easier for a startup founder to start up today as compared to when you first started up DocDoc a couple of years ago?
Oh, yeah. So, okay. We need to peel that onion a little bit because for sure it's a lot easier. The ecosystem is making massive leaps and bounds in growth in terms of technical talent and product management. And groups like AWS were not out here in force 6-7 years ago like they are now. And there's a whole litany of providers that have come out. So it's definitely making massive strides. What hasn't happened, and Southeast Asia is a little different than China in that, because I remember I was an investor at the time. I started investing in China in 97. So I watched kind of that whole path develop. And what you saw there was you didn't need disruption because there were just giant gaps in the ecosystem. They didn't have things like health insurance. Yeah. They didn't have things like life insurance. They didn't have, good looking residential apartment buildings at that time. I mean, it was amazing coming out of kind of the mosaic, just in that time period. The transition that's happened is so profound and unique that it's hard to really articulate. Southeast Asia is starting in an ecosystem from a very different position. There are a lot of established businesses in markets like Singapore and Malaysia and Hong Kong. Less so in Vietnam. Vietnam's a little closer to an allegory of what China was like. The Philippines is a mix, and I'd say Indonesia is a mix. But in many ways, you're starting at a higher level of base kind of function in the industry. And what that means is that you have to shift the legacy mindset. In China, there was a gap. So you fill the gap. I think Southeast Asia is going to have to go through a pretty big period. It'll be more like Silicon Valley. It'll have to go through a pretty big period of startups disrupting in order to get real B2B going. The kind of lead-eyed industries in the United States and Europe didn't just wake up one morning and say, hey, I want to work with startups, right? They didn't do that. They got hammered by startups and they saw other peer industries get hammered in disruption. And they said, hey, we have to figure out a new path of innovation. No group wants to change. No big group wants to innovate. Innovation is always painful and it's always uncomfortable and it's always unsettling somebody in the organization. That's just kind of part of the change process. I think Southeast Asia in the B2B space is really suffering from legacy mindsets. And I think the big opportunities now are going to be disruption, and they're platform based and they're disruptors. Gojek and Grab, using an example again, think about what they did to the taxi industry. They were true disruptors. Right now they're becoming super apps and they're going into financial services and they're disrupting banks. Right? They may collaborate on the periphery, but fundamentally that super app is a disruption play. And I think that's where the opportunities are in the industry in Southeast Asia. They're more disruption. 3 to 5 years from now, we'll probably be moving more into an enablement phase. That's where you see the large family offices, large family organizations saying, hey, we really have to take this innovation thing seriously. We have to work with them kids that are entrepreneurs in a serious way and really allow them to make revenue and come up with reasonable agreements. That's where I think the industry is vis-a-vis the US or China or some of these other groups.
Absolutely right. And
Joyce, can I just add to that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Cole was alluding to there, just in terms of the sort of innovation. Innovation is not the goal typically for an organization. It's a tool. It's a lever that organizations will use to achieve their business goals, right? And we are seeing some very conservative, traditional, large enterprise organizations that are really pivoting in the way that they